You're listening to Movies, Music, and Munchies. This is a brand new podcast, and I couldn't think of no better way than to, set up my guest. 40 years plus, actually 42 years ago today.
The first album came out.
And we're celebrating that. And he could have been a star child and went away, but no. In 1999, we went to Toronto to see him tackle Andrew Lloyd Webber's Phantom of the Opera. It was excellent. And now, the Soul Station. He's singing soul classics. Paul Stanley's Soul Station. Paul Stanley from KISS. Hey, man, thank you for coming in.
Wow, what an introduction. Keep going. I have nothing to say that tops that.
You keep challenging yourself. And also, Face the Music, A Life Exposed. I read it twice recently. That was really inspiring. And what keeps you doing it? What makes you not rest on your laurels?
You know, it's really not about anything I do for other people. Everything that I take on, challenges, whether it's doing a book or doing Phantom of the Opera or anything of that sort, I do for myself. It helps me define for myself who I am. To me, life is all about seeing what's on the horizon and seeing mountains and climbing them. And I kind of define myself by those things. So doing Phantom of the Opera told me something about myself. Painting and having a very successful career at that, same thing. So Soul Station's no different than that. And writing a book was I don't want to say it was cathartic, because people say, well, was it cathartic to write a book? And I go, no, it was cathartic to live the life. That was just documenting it. And for me, I just find that the less secrets we have, the more free we are. So when you tell people the truth about who you are, it kind of it frees you. So I found a lot of things in my life, particularly in the last few decades, very, very freeing.
Mm-hmm. You took 2 trains and a bus when you were 15 years old to get therapy. Mm-hmm. How does anyone recognize that at such a young age?
I think I'm just genetically predisposed to survival. I've always looked at life and wanted to thrive and wanted to not hurt myself. And when I saw people around me doing things that were damaging, I certainly turned away from that. But I saw enough in my family that was dysfunctional or unhealthy, and we pattern ourselves after what we see around us. So we define normal and we define love and all different things by our families. And my family, as much as they meant well, didn't necessarily do the right thing. And I fell right into the same footsteps. And I found myself thinking, if I live like this, I'm going to turn out like them. And that wasn't acceptable.
$3 a session.
Best $3 I ever spent, let me tell you.
What was the best thing they told you?
Therapy is a long process, I think, and an ongoing process. I think you can spend your life in some sort of therapy. To me, therapy ultimately turns into the best conversation in town. You find somebody, if you're lucky enough, who's impartial and has no vested interest in what's going on, and you just discuss things. But in the beginning, certainly for years, or it can be decades, you're really trying to reroute and undo the wrong paths that you've taken. And perhaps the first thing you have to find out is that you're not that different than other people. I think we all think of ourselves as having all these secrets and that everybody else is fine and we're not. Well, once you start to realize that we're all, searching and stumbling around, that's a good place to start.
I'm here with the lead singer of KISS, Paul Stanley. I'm standing here with a copy of his new book, Paul Stanley, A Life Exposed. I've read all 4, and this one I've read twice. It just seems to have a lot of humility in it.
I think I don't know if humility is the right word. Maybe it's maybe depth. Interestingly, when somebody would come to me and say, "Oh, I read all 4 books," I go, "Well, it's not part of a group of books. It's very much it's not a Kiss story. It's my story." And I think it comes at things from a very different point of view. And the purpose of it, I think, ultimately, I wrote this book for my kids. I wanted them to understand what I went through and what it takes to succeed and who I am. So Evan's read it. My littler ones will read it at some point. And that was really my main purpose in writing it, was first and foremost to write it for my children. And then secondly, I think that most people who read it identify with it on some level for some struggles they've had. And for me, that's incredibly rewarding. It was a #2 New York Times bestseller. I think it's translated now into 6 languages.
Wow.
And, I think my plight and my life is universal in some sense. We all don't wind up in Kiss, but we all come from our own struggles and our own challenges, and how we live our lives and what we give back is, the bottom line is pretty much the same.
Mm-hmm. It was just a great read. It was
Thank you.
Good book, and you should get it. You should really get inspired, because the microtia affected your right ear, but it's almost healing. Talking about it, is that
very much so? To have a birth defect for anybody or any kind of difference is it can be exhausting, because
you were like this, like your whole
life. You are always afraid of being stared at for being different than everybody, for being ridiculed. You're always afraid of all those things, and I think that there's a healing process in opening up about it and helping other people. I've met with kids, I've met with their parents, and it's interesting because sometimes parents want to say to their kids, well, you're just like everybody else. You lose your kid right there because it's denial. No, you're not like everybody else, and life may be more difficult for you, but there are rewards if you're willing to work hard to overcome, your issues. This tough love sometimes, it comes from a place of love, but it's more tough than anything else because it tends to isolate you more, because you're feeling, well, my parents, what can I say to my parents? They don't get it. Mm-hmm. So I certainly came from a household like that. I'd rather sit down with kids and tell them the truth, that life is more difficult for you than anybody else. And anybody who's ever gone outside with an article of clothing on that people are staring at, they get to go home and change the clothing. But when you're stuck, and this is who you are, and this is what you look like, that can be a tough cross to bear.
Okay.
Boy, I'm rather articulate.
I do. All right. Evan, Colin, Sarah, Emily. You're different, I think. And I didn't know anything. I don't know you, but it just seems like you're content now.
I'm so content. I have a life that truly I never could have.
Erin, too.
Erin, God bless her. God bless her. Somebody said to me, what do you want for Valentine's Day? I said, I got it. I got my wife. My life is so far beyond anything I could have ever hoped for, because I didn't know it existed. But inch by inch, and step by step, I built something that has me counting my blessings every night and every morning. My children are my life, and at some point, it's a wonderful thing to move from the center of the universe and give it to your kids, and live for them. Mm-hmm. Look, when we leave the earth, I think it's, as corny as it may seem, it's really about what we leave behind, and we can leave a better world by leaving better people.
You just sang on Ace's solo album, and what was that like?
It was great. It was really fun. Ace and I, for better or worse, go back to something very special. We started something that is a phenomenon that has lasted 40 plus years. So whether or not we play together and whether or not we bicker, which we do, and have very different points of view on certain things, the tie together is undeniable and will last forever. So when Ace called and asked if I would sing on it, I said, of course. His success would only make me that much happier. We started this together, and once again, there is no shortage of sometimes back and forth talking in the press. But at the end of the day, there's no denying what we created together. And I actually had a ball doing the song. No, I didn't just get choked up. I had a ball doing the song, and Ace couldn't have been nicer and easier to work with. We were communicating by phone and sending stuff back and forth, and I very much enjoyed it.
Yes, that's Paul Stanley of Kiss, but now Paul Stanley of Soul Station. What's it like honing a 13-piece band?
It's exhilarating. It's just awesome. All the people in Soul Station are the top shelf creme de la creme. These people have all played with everybody from Stevie Wonder, Smokey Robinson, Natalie Cole, Pink, Whitney Houston, and John Mayer. And all of us are just, we're just driven to recreate the passion and the joy of great Motown and Philly soul. At this point, sadly, so much of that music has just been relegated to being samples on what I think is pretty worthless. I can't even say music. Nursery rhymes on top of a beat. I'm not a fan of that stuff. I'd rather hear the Temptations. I'd rather hear the Four Tops. I'd rather hear Stevie Wonder, Smokey Robinson, the Delphonics, all this great stuff. So, February 26th, I'm in San Juan Capistrano at the Coach House. The 27th, I'm in Agora Hills at the Canyon Club. And the 28th, a new club, which is terrific, called The Rose in Pasadena. And we're just there to pay tribute. And it's interesting because as much as we are recreating really beautifully the songs, we're not doing it in a sterile fashion. It's not. We didn't look at it under a microscope. What we're trying to capture is the passion of it, and that is really what's at the core of that music. Not perfection, but passion.
What's really cool is I was lifted at the Roxy by the horn section. What's it like having it right behind you blasting?
Look, when I did Phantom of the Opera, I had an orchestra. Kiss did Kiss Symphony in Melbourne, Australia at around 2002 or 2003, and we had a 70 or 80-piece orchestra. So anytime that you fortify and muscle up the sound of what you're doing, it's amazing. And again, Soul Station is just off the charts. And what I love so much about all the players, there's 3 backup singers, 3 horn players, 2 keyboard players, percussion, drums, bass. Now, it
went from 10-piece to 13-piece.
Yes. Well, because I'm crazy. I'm crazy, and I really am. I strive for perfection, and the music needs real horns. So we added horns.
Well, let's talk about Eric Singerson, your group.
Yeah.
He's just the go-to guy, is he not?
Eric Singer is. First of all, I've played with him, I think, 26 years, which is unbelievable. And you couldn't take a drummer from a thrash metal band and put him into this situation. Eric's background is so diverse, and he played big band. His dad was in bands that did all the standards. So Eric played that music. Eric really understands music on a level that goes far beyond being a drummer. So he was immediately the guy who I couldn't imagine not being in it, and it would be just a whole different situation. Funny because I was talking to Paul Rodgers, and who's one of the greatest singers of all time as far as I'm concerned, and we were talking about the music, and I sent him some of it, and besides being blown away, he was saying, "Who is the drummer?" So that says volumes.
Well, you bring up Paul Rodgers. You just sang on Ace's solo album. And what was that like?
It was great. It was really fun. Ace and I, for better or worse, go back to something very special. We started something that is a phenomenon that has lasted 40 plus years. So whether or not we play together and whether or not we bicker, which we do, and have very different points of view on certain things, the tie together is undeniable and will last forever. So when Ace called and asked if I would sing on it, I said, of course. You know, his success would only make me that much happier.
Wow, that's very unselfish. I mean, you and Gene, you guys are business and partners, and Peter and Ace, they do what they do. You know, so that's really
well. We started this together, and once again, there is no shortage of sometimes back and forth talking in the press. But at the end of the day, there's no denying what we created together, and I actually had a ball doing the song. No, I didn't just get choked up. I had a ball doing the song, and Ace couldn't have been nicer and easier to work with. We were communicating by phone and sending stuff back and forth, and I very much enjoyed it.
Well, when you're talking about, you know, doing something like Soul Station, maybe you can break it down for me, okay? What part of your voice do you use in a Kiss song? What part of your voice do you go for in Phantom of the Opera?
Interesting.
And then what are you doing right now at Soul Station?
That's all very interesting because I've always thought of myself as a singer who sings rock as opposed to a rock singer. Rock singers are usually very limited in what they can do. They sing rock because that's all they can do. You know, I like to play around a bit, and different parts of your voice, if you use it properly as an instrument, you know, can fill all kinds of needs, and it just depends on technique. So something like Phantom of the Opera is much more lower based. It's diaphragm. It's supporting a much lower place, and much more of an open throat.
Wow.
So that's different. And Kiss is just kind of balls out, for a better description, and yet that also takes technique and changes over the years as your voice changes. Nobody's voice stays the same for 40 or 50 years. I don't know anybody who does. So you have to acclimate and accommodate those changes. For Soul Station, most of what I'm doing is the great things by Smokey Robinson and the Temps, so Eddie Kendricks. So a lot of it is falsetto. And it's really, it takes a certain kind of control and tone, but I love singing. Mm-hmm. So it's all joy for me.
Without further ado, here's Paul Stanley's Soul Station. I was transported. Is that the whole idea?
Yeah. This music is exhilarating. And what I find so interesting is to play these songs live and have the audience sing along. Not because I'm asking them, because I never ask them to sing along, but it's in all of us. These songs whether we know it or not, have played a part in our lives and are part of the fabric of what we have lived. So when you hear people singing along Just My Imagination or Tracks of My Tears, it's with this unbridled joy and passion. So we play these songs with passion, and the response from the audience is very much a mirror of that.
Can this go national?
Yeah, the idea is very much to take it out of the clubs and take it into performing arts centers, take it into theaters. And I'm actually meeting this afternoon about an idea of doing something for TV, a series, a mini-series about Soul Station, and some very interesting aspects would be covered on the show. So I love doing this, and to be able to have a dream, which I did with this band, and put it together and see it be not only as good as I hope, but far better. It's something I want to sustain. So I'm committed to trying to keep it out there, because everybody who sees Soul Station says, when are you doing it again?
Let's blow some minds. There's a track, Smokey Robinson, Tracks of My Tears. Set it up for me.
Smokey was always a brilliant writer, and here's a guy who came out of urban Detroit and somehow was so worldly. There's a song, Tears of a Clown, where he sings about Pagliacci. Now, for anybody, most people on the street don't know anything about Pagliacci, and Pagliacci was a clown in an Italian opera. His wife is having an affair, and he's trying, it's one of those
downtrodden.
Yeah, triangle murder. But here's this guy who's forced to put on a smile, but he's actually breaking up inside. So Smokey sang, just like Pagliacci did, I try to keep my sadness hid. And it's a song about Tears of a Clown, which I always thought was brilliant, that somebody from his background at such a young age understood opera. So anyway, Tracks of My Tears is another of these poignant songs, and his delivery was just so beautiful. And I've always thought that when a man sings in a great falsetto, whether it's Smokey or Eddie Kendricks or Russell Tompkins from the Stylistics, it's a way of delivering a song very differently. So Tracks of My Tears is poignant as far as the lyrics go, the melody. It's just a gem, and I'm honored to sing it.
Can this go national?
Yeah, the idea is very much to take it out of the clubs and take it into performing arts centers, take it into theaters. And I'm actually meeting this afternoon about an idea of doing something for TV, a series, a mini-series about Soul Station, and some very interesting aspects would be covered on the show. So I love doing this, and to be able to have a dream, which I did with this band, and put it together and see it be not only as good as I hope, but far better. It's something I want to sustain. So I'm committed to trying to keep it out there, because everybody who sees Soul Station says, when are you doing it again?
Paul Stanley from KISS is here, so thank you, Paul.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So the thing about set lists, what's your methodology behind the set list?
Boy, you're asking great questions. Very good questions. I think that a set list can never be random. It's not a matter of just playing a bunch of songs. It's a matter of putting them in an order that has pacing to it. And I think what KISS has always done, and what I try to do in any setting that I'm doing, is you want to come out and kick people right in the teeth for maybe a song or two, and then start to take it down, and then gradually build it up to, another crescendo, so to speak. So it's never just a random bunch of songs. So
well, I'm looking. I just pulled out the set list for Soul Station. Maybe you can look at some of these songs and tell me what is it about that song that did it for you, and why you chose to include it.
Well, Get Ready is Temptations is just a great up-tempo song. So that's what we started at the Roxy with. It was just a great. I think that first songs usually have to introduce you to an audience.
It's familiar.
Yeah, whether it's 500 people, 5,000, 50,000, you want to first come out and say hi. And this is what the night is all about. So whether it's Detroit Rock City or Get Ready, you want to come out and in a way introduce what people are going to get. So that was the song we started with. La La Means I Love You is a song by a group called the Delphonics, and it's just a great song that maybe isn't at the top of everybody's list, but when you hear it, most people go, oh yeah, I know that one. And it's just a great song. And
and that was part of your repertoire when you went down, I think, 48th Street to the record store. Did you listen to those intently?
Well, I was very lucky. When I was a kid, music was much more diverse in terms of what you could listen to. The bills at concerts were much more diverse. Now, if you go to a concert, you're basically seeing the same act 2 or 3 times because they're all, I don't want to say interchangeable, but the genre is the same. Whereas when you would go to the Fillmore East, you could go see Led Zeppelin with Woody Herman's orchestra opening for them. Even when Kiss first came on the scene, we would do shows with, let's say, Dr. John opening up. So there was a much more diverse, almost like a musical buffet. So I was very lucky. I saw a lot of very diverse shows. I also saw Otis Redding. I saw Solomon Burke. I saw the Temptations.
Okay, Otis Redding. Do you have a specific memory about that show?
Just wow. To me, there's only 2 kinds of music, good and bad.
Yeah.
And greatness is so apparent, and I certainly was well aware of Otis Redding, but to see him up there with a full band and horn section doing Satisfaction and Respect and Try a Little Tenderness, commitment is ultimately what live performance is all about, and there's no faking it. So when you see somebody up there giving their all, and not only giving their all, but being immersed in what they're doing, it's really exhilarating, and it sets a bar that I've always tried to work towards.
Is the set list going to change? Yeah,
well, the set list will change, and there'll be some more tunes added. So it's fluid in that sense, but what I did at the Roxy, for example, is a great meal. It's a great. I think it was a 16-course meal. So there were 16 songs, but we're going to play some more. And the great thing is these people play with some of the best in the business, and yet most of them will say this is their favorite thing to do. And we've all just been chomping at the bit. Rehearsals start tomorrow, and we're just over the moon. It's always great to have them. They also come over to the house, and we cook outside and have a good time. So this is kind of like our mission, and we're all allies in loving this music. And perhaps I'm somebody who some people might scratch their head about and go, Paul Stanley singing that music? Well, the first converts I made were everybody in Soul Station who came in and certainly came in with the idea of wanting to play these songs. But I think most of them were not only wowed, but very pleasantly surprised by not only what they were all doing, but what I was doing.
Maybe you can break it down for me, okay? What part of your voice do you use in a Kiss song? What part of your voice do you go for in Phantom of the Opera?
Interesting.
And then what are you doing right now at Soul Station?
It's all very interesting because I've always thought of myself as a singer who sings rock as opposed to a rock singer. Rock singers are usually very limited in what they can do. They sing rock because that's all they can do. I like to play around a bit, and different parts of your voice, if you use it properly as an instrument, can fill all kinds of needs, and it just depends on technique. So something like Phantom of the Opera is much more lower based. It's diaphragm. It's supporting from a much lower place, and much more of an open throat. So that's different. And Kiss is just kind of balls out, for a better description, and yet that also takes technique and changes over the years as your voice changes. Nobody's voice stays the same for 40 or 50 years. I don't know anybody who does. So you have to acclimate and accommodate those changes. For Soul Station, most of what I'm doing is the great things by Smokey Robinson and the Temps, Eddie Kendricks. So a lot of it is falsetto. And it's really, it takes a certain kind of control and tone. But I love singing. Mm-hmm. So it's all joy for me.
Evan is unreal on the guitar. Mm. What does he think of Soul Station?
Oh, it blows him away. And what I love so much about my son, other than I'm lucky enough to have him be my son, is that his appreciation of music is so vast and deep, and we share this journey, this love of all kinds of music. He's a phenomenal blues player, and I don't mean blues in the sense that he listened to some Eric Clapton records and copied them, but to really have a foundation in any kind of music, you have to go back to the roots of it. When he first started playing guitar, I said to him, if you want to be a great rock player, you got to go to the blues. And if you're going to go to the blues, you got to remember that Jimi Hendrix's first song that he played wasn't Purple Haze. So you have to go to who he listened to. You have to go to the Albert Kings, the B.B. Kings, the Freddie Kings, the Albert Collins. You got to go back to Hubert Sumlin. Then you got to go back to Robert Johnson, Blind Boy Fuller. The deeper your foundation, the more you bring to your music. So as far as that, he's pretty consummate in playing that stuff. But he also loves Motown. I think when he started the Tisch School of Music, which is in NYU, and I think takes 40-plus students a year, I think he wrote a paper on I Wish It Would Rain by the Temptations, a paper on that song. So his passion and love of music is as deep as mine. So I'm very, very fortunate. And he's my hero, man. I wish I could be more like him.
And he's got your work ethic, no doubt.
He does. He works daily. I just got off the phone with him, and he's writing every day, and he's got a great band, and they're playing around New York, and he understands what it's all about.
Let's give him a plug.
Yeah, I mean, Evan Stanley, he's besides being a really good-looking guy and knocking the girls off with his elbow, he's a terrific musician, and his songs are great, and I like the fact that he doesn't look to me for favors. So it's before he went away to school, he was a delivery boy at a deli. His work ethic is really terrific. No favors from Dad. He wants to do this on his own. So I applaud him.
The show must go on. Mm-hmm. So I was wondering if you had a story about, equipment or costume where something wasn't working, or you're late for makeup. What comes to your mind?
Look, my philosophy has always been, if you can't go out there and give 100%, you shouldn't go out on stage. If a person is paying to see you, they don't need an excuse. And if you have to give one, then you should stay home. So it's always about giving 100%. I've been literally in bed 20-plus hours a day and had them wake me up to go out on stage with 100-plus temperature and go out there and do that show so that nobody knows that there's anything wrong. I've done shows with a cracked rib, bandaged up. It's a commitment to and a pride in what what we do. There's no reason to do a half-ass show, and we never do. It's not for the audience to know the problems that you're having. It's for the audience to get what they came for. Tonight's the only night that matters. What you did last night doesn't matter. The city you were in last night doesn't matter. Tomorrow night doesn't matter. You have to go out there committed to fulfilling your obligation. Those people have made my life amazing, and it's a great sense of pride for me to go out there and live up to what they're expecting. And nothing short of my deathbed would get in the way of that.
Movies, music, and Munchies. Movies. What's your favorite movie to watch with the family?
Wow, with the family, that's a tough one, because I watch movies with my family that I wouldn't necessarily watch. I've probably seen more animated features than anything else.
Oh yeah, Little Mermaid.
My gosh, it's endless. But what's so amazing is that so many of those movies now have an appeal not only to children but to adults. They're written with adults in mind. So sometimes there's jokes in them that go over the kids' heads.
Yeah, like Bugs Bunny.
Yeah. So it's certainly I've seen more animated features recently.
What about you and Aaron? Do you guys have a favorite movie?
Look, for me, if I'm going to pay money, I don't want to be made miserable. I don't need a dose of reality. I see it every day. I read about it on the internet. For me, it comes down to I'm paying, make me laugh or blow shit up. So, that's what it's about for me. The rest of it is taken care of and it's free. So I love Something About Mary.
Oh, my God.
I love Kingpin.
Something About Mary is the funniest movie of the past 20 years.
Yeah, and lesser known, but equally funny is Kingpin with Woody Harrelson and Bill Murray. Just off the hook, laughter. So that's what I tend to go for. That kind of stuff and spectacle.
You've been hanging around with some celebrity chefs, but let's leave that aside. What are you cooking in the farm, at your house, with the family? What's the go-to dish?
My kids love meatballs. So I make really great meatballs. And
What's your mix?
And I can't take credit for it because my friend Rocco DeSpirito's mom.
My friend Rocco DeSpirito.
Yeah. So Rocco's like my consigliere. He's usually the guy I call, but sometimes I'm texting or Michael Simon and different people. But Rocco's really my go-to. So the meatballs are beef, veal, and pork, the Holy Trinity. That's what you need. And onions and chicken broth and Parmesan Reggiano and garlic and parsley and eggs. You fry them in olive oil and throw them in sauce and let them cook. So my kids love that. Tonight I'm making burgers. It's not like I cook every night, but and I'm certainly not a chef. I am a cook. Chefs deserve an amazing amount of accolades and respect because what those people turn out effortlessly, I couldn't do with a gun to my head.
How about this? A title. Domestic Iron Chef. Would you be happy with that?
I think I'd just be domestic.
All right. What else?
Let's see. What else? Meatloaf. They love, meatloaf gets such a bad rap because some of it is like a hand grenade, or like a lead weight of meat. But when you make meatloaf properly, man, it's great. And when I first said to my kids, I'm going to make you meatloaf, they were like, meatloaf, ugh. And it's because they saw TV shows where everybody goes, meatloaf, ugh. But it's when it's made right, man, it's pretty damn good.
3 dates coming up. February 26th at the Coach House in San Juan Capistrano. February 27th, Agora Hills up north in the Canyon Club. And Sunday, February 28th, a brand new venue, The Rose in Pasadena. Available. Get those tickets at paulstanley.com. Paul, it was an honor. And I want to say thank you for coming in and talking movies, music, and Munchies. Thank you so much.
Great. I'm going to go get some Munchies.